Welcome back, everybody, and today we're going to discuss a new area of the world and a place called India. Now, in today's world, India is one of the largest populated areas on Earth. In fact, it's probably the second largest country in terms of population on the planet. If you look at India, well, whenever we talk about a new civilization, the first thing we always have to talk about is what? Nice and loud. Geography. Very good. Okay. So, when you look at India, this is India from this is actually like a satellite image, minus the little yellow lines. The geography of India can be described in really one word: diverse. Very much like the United States, depending upon where you are in India, your geography is going to be very different because it has many different types of geography. It is diverse. Now, if you look at India itself, it's shaped kind of like a triangle. Just looking at its shape, it's triangular, or almost like a shark tooth. I think it looks like a shark tooth, don't you? It's okay, guys. All right. So it's an area of land that's kind of jutting out into the ocean. Do you know what ocean it's surrounded by? The Indian Ocean is surrounding India. Very good. All right. Now, this triangular area of land is it's called a subcontinent. A subcontinent. Now, we all know what a continent is, right? There's 7 of them on Earth. Well, what would be a sub? What does sub mean? What does sub mean? Okay, part. It is part of the continent. What else? A smaller part of the continent. I like that. What else? What about a submarine? What does that mean? What does it do? Goes under. Well, if you look at India, right here, this is the continent of what? What continent is this? Asia. Where is it located in relation to the continent of Asia? It's under. It's south of it. So it would be a subcontinent. It is under the main continent of Asia. That's why it's called the subcontinent of Asia. All right? And the subcontinent is one word. All right. Now, if we look at the different areas of India, if you look at the very northern border, so up here, can you see my cursor on the screen? Or no? All right. Yeah? You can?
I can barely see it.
Okay. The northern border up here, see where it's kind of white?
Yeah.
All right. What is that northern border? Anybody take a guess? They are mountains. Do you know what mountain range that is? Say it nice and loud. It is the Himalayas. Very good. It's the Himalaya mountain range. Do you guys know anything about the Himalayas? Anything special about them?
Doesn't it have like the tallest mountain?
They are the tallest mountains in the world, including the tallest mountain, Mount Everest. Okay. So the Himalaya Mountains are the northern border of India. And the Himalaya Mountains are the tallest mountains in the world. Okay, just to give you an idea, can you guys name a mountain near us? Because we live in the mountains. Okay, that's our mountain range, yeah. But one mountain. Like Flat Top. You ever heard of Flat Top Mountain? Where Winter Place is? You ever heard of that? The elevation of Flat Top Mountain is around 3,200 feet. 3,200 feet. Okay? That's one of the tallest mountains where we live, right? Like in southern West Virginia. The tallest mountain in the Himalayas is Mount Everest. Do you know how tall it is? It's 29,000 feet. So it's basically 10 times larger than the tallest mountain where we live. It is very, very tall. Okay, it's very, 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 very tall. It's so high, in fact, if you're standing at the top of it, you won't be able to breathe very well because you're almost in space. The air is so thin, you have to take oxygen with you. In fact, there's a picture, I couldn't find it. There's a picture of these two guys. They had just climbed Mount Everest, and you can see it on the background. You could see the curvature of the earth in the background. It's that tall, okay? So now, I don't want you to think like there's less gravity and stuff, because it's not that close to outer space. But it's very, very tall. And it gets taller every year because of plate tectonics. And how much do you think it grows every year? Yeah, it doesn't grow very much. It grows about the same rate your fingernails grow. So a few centimeters a year, but it's still getting taller and taller and taller. So it's 29,035 feet. 29,035 feet. So very tall mountains. So I want you to imagine having to try to cross that, to try to get from China, which is this purple, like right here, try to cross from China to India. Easy or difficult? Very difficult. You think it's tough to, imagine just walking through our mountains. They're 10 times smaller. Well, imagine it's 10 times more difficult. Or maybe even more because they're difficult mountains to get across. Every year people die trying to climb Mount Everest. Every year. All right? Okay, so Mount Everest, tallest mountain in the world, and it's in the Himalayas, which it's not in the country of India. It's actually in the country of Nepal, but Nepal didn't exist then. It was part of India. All right? Now, just south of the Himalayas, it looks like it gets some pretty fertile, lush green land here. So what might you think would be there? Okay, that's a good guess. River Valley. Okay, and the largest river is the Ganges. 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 The Ganges River Valley. It's just south of the Himalaya Mountains. And like we said, with with every former ancient civilization we've talked about, they all sprang up around what geographic formation? River valleys. So the Ganges is the river valley that we're going to talk about with India. All right? If you continue on south, there's a large area of flat land that makes up a significant portion of the Indian continent. Okay? Now, this area of land is kind of like it's raised. It's elevated and then it's flat on top. What kind of geographic formation is raised up like a mountain but then flat on the top? A plateau, and it's called the Deccan Plateau. The Deccan Plateau, Deccan, Deccan Plateau. And the Deccan Plateau is large, okay? It's very, very large. It's like the size of a state, like West Virginia, like the whole state. Like it's very, very large. Are you guys familiar with any plateaus near us? How about, so what is a plateau? Give me a definition one more time. You're very good at sign language.
Like a raised thing, almost like a mountain, but it's flat.
Like a mountain with a flat top.
Flat top.
Hey, flat top mountain. How about the entire city of Beckley is a plateau? If you think about it, there's some hills, but really Beckley is a plateau. Like, think about where that new Mexican restaurant is, Campestre on Harper Road. You guys know what I'm talking about? All right. Look, imagine standing in the parking lot and you just kind of look around. How far can you see? You can see pretty far because it's flat. All right. Then imagine you get on the interstate and you come toward our school. You go uphill or downhill? You go downhill. All right. Imagine you get on the interstate and you go toward Charleston. You go uphill or downhill? Downhill. Now let's imagine you go past like Go-Mart and Country Inn and Sweets and you go toward Liberty. And you go what way? All right. Then imagine you go the opposite direction. You go all the way through Beckley and you want to go to Shady and you go downhill. Beckley is a plateau. Okay. You ever heard of Plateau Medical Center? Okay. I think that's in Oak Hill. But still. All right. Now, Beckley is a small plateau. Flat Top Mountain is small. The Deccan Plateau is enormous. It's very, 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 very large and very, very, very flat and makes it good for farming. Okay, so there's some farming that goes on the Deccan Plateau. Okay, got some pictures here. That is Mount Everest. It's enormous.
How do people die on it?
How do people die on it?
See all that snow?
Freezing to death, oxygen deprivation, exhaustion, exposure. There are multiple ways that you can die on Mount Everest.
You fall?
You can fall. Yeah, it's dangerous. It's very, very dangerous. Okay, but this picture on the left is you guys know those popular jackets, the North Face jackets, because this is the North Face of Mount Everest. That's where that name brand comes from, the North Face of Mount Everest. Okay, all right, and then this is from obviously a much farther away picture of Mount Everest. Okay, we talked about the Ganges River Valley. This is a map on the left that kind of shows like up here is the Himalaya mountain range, and then just south you have the Ganges River, and you see it has multiple little inlets and outlets, and then this is an actual photograph of the Ganges. Okay. All right, another map. Let's see what we got here. This is the Deccan Plateau. It is very large. It's actually a significant portion of the Indian subcontinent is the Deccan Plateau. All right. Okay, so questions on these aspects of India's geography. The Himalayas, Ganges River Valley, Deccan Plateau. Are you familiar with those now? Okay, now that's like the actual physical geography of India. But those things are all nice and big and important, but it's not even the most primary feature of India's climate. You know what the primary feature of India's climate is? It is a seasonal wind pattern called a monsoon. Monsoon. Now, when you think of monsoon, what do you think of? Rain. Everybody thinks of rain. And you're half right. Because it's a seasonal weather pattern. What does that mean if it's seasonal? Changes with the seasons. So, the primary feature of India's climate is the monsoon, which is a seasonal wind or weather pattern. And what happens is in the winter time, cold, dry air blows this way. Well, what does it have to cross in order for it to come over India?
Mountains.
The Himalaya mountains. And so that air is going to be very cold and very dry because the moisture cannot get across the Himalayas. But the wind comes and it brings cold, dry air. That's in the wintertime. In the summertime, it shifts directions because it's seasonal wind pattern. So instead of it coming this way, it comes this way. Well, what is right here? That is the equator. What is the weather like at the equator? Hot, humid. So it brings moist, warm air from the equator. And when that happens, it brings, what does it bring with it? Lots of rain. Lots of rain. Okay? So in the summer, lots of warm, wet rain. In the winter, cold, dry air. Got that? That's how the monsoon works. We always associate the monsoon with rain. Well, it changes directions. So you have a winter monsoon and you have a summer monsoon. It all depends on what season you're in. All right. Now the monsoon is sometimes unpredictable. As you can see, it can cause floods. It can cause unpredictable floods, which can lead to crop failures. So it's an unpredictable nature. Do you guys remember when we talked about another river that floods predictably? The Nile. So India does not have that. Their rivers are like ours. They flood unpredictably. But they also have a monsoon, which brings lots and lots and lots of rain. Okay? So questions on India's climate and geography. Very good. All right, so we'll talk about India's very first civilizations, the very first ones. So in Mesopotamia, it was Sumer, and then the Egyptians had, the Pharaoh in ancient Egypt, which was around Giza and the Nile River. India's have Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, two different places around the same time period. These civilizations began about 3000 BC. So like 5,000 years ago, they began. Very old. 3000 BC, and Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro existed until about 1500 BC. They're not around anymore, and we'll explain why later. But they lasted from about 3000 BC to 1500 BC. Now, these are ancient ruins of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, and they are really interesting places. Like if you had to live 5,000 years ago on Earth, you may have wanted to pick one of these two places because the cities were very carefully planned. They had large walls that completely surrounded their cities and neighborhood. They had public wells where you could get clean drinking water out of the ground. They had sewer systems where they took all your waste. You guys know what I mean by waste? When you make your number ones and number twos. They had drainage that would drain all that away from the city. Because imagine you have a lot of people living in the same place. Everybody's got to use the restroom. If you don't have a way to get rid of it, it will pile up and make you sick. Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro had wastewater drainage that took sewer water to a pit outside of the city. So they were very carefully planned. In addition, every home had like a chute, and the chute would lead from your home down to the street where you could put your trash and your garbage, and every day somebody would come pick it up. Every day. How often does a garbage man come to your house? Once a week. They were getting their trash picked up every day. So that's pretty good. That's pretty good. What happened? What happened to these civilizations? They only lasted 1,500 years. What happened, do you think? Yeah, just like sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? Well, they get conquered. And the people that conquer Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro are the Aryans. And they do that around the year 1500 BC. Now the Aryans are Indo-Europeans. That means that they are kind of in an area, they're from an area in between India and Europe. The area that they are from is like the area, it's like the present day countries of Georgia, not the state of Georgia, the country of Georgia, Azerbaijan, like the Caucasus Mountains. So they're from the Caucasus Mountains. So what do you think a person who's Indo-European looked like? What do you think they looked like? Describe for me what they looked like. Well, they're from the Caucasus Mountains, and so they are Caucasian. What does that mean? They're white people, okay? So these Caucasian people came to India, and they were like nomads. The Caucasus, the people, the Caucasians, the Indo-European Aryans, they were basically the way they lived is they would go places that had things, kick their butt, and take what they wanted. That's how they lived. All right. When they get to Harappa and Mohenjo-daro, they're like, you guys got sewers, and you got walled neighborhoods, and you got public water. This place is pretty cool. Let's stay here. And that's what they did. They conquered them, and then they stayed. Now, in doing so, they were how did they conquer them? Yeah, they fought them. They went to war with them, and it came into the city and took over using power, using military. The only problem was they could get the power, but how do they keep it? They had to keep it because Mohenjo-daro and Harappa were very large. There was a lot of people living there, and the Aryans were completely outnumbered. And so they had to create some new ways to subjugate people. And they do that with this thing called the caste system. You ever heard of that? We're going to look into the caste system a lot more in the next module. But it's a way of subjugating people, and it's based partly on race. Because the Aryans, you can tell what they look like. They're Caucasians. Indian people are not Caucasian. Their skin is darker. And so this is one of the first instances of racism on Earth, where they use skin color to determine your well-being in society. Okay? So that's important for the future, unfortunately. But once the Aryans come in and conquer, and they say, we're going to stay, they became pastoral. They no longer became traveling around, conquering other people and taking what they had. They became pastoral. They stayed in one place. And that place was Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. They even began to develop a written language, all their own. And this written language is very difficult to decipher, as you can see. Yeah. What is that written language called? Okay, cuneiform is Mesopotamian, and it's wedge-shaped symbols. Looks like it's characters written on paper. It does look like M's, okay? It starts with an S, is this language. Sanskrit. You guys ever watch those superhero movies, Doctor Strange? All those books he reads, they're all written in Sanskrit. Not that that's important to any of this, but if you see that language, it's Sanskrit, okay? And Sanskrit became like the official written language of India for a long, long, long time, okay? And any of the religious texts that we're going to learn about when we do Hinduism and Buddhism next week are all written in Sanskrit. They're written in Sanskrit, Indian language, okay? All right, so do you guys have any questions about the geography of India or Indian people or Sanskrit, Aryans, Harappa, Mohenjo-daro? Feel confident in that? Okay, so make sure you look on Schoology for the rest of the week. You have a vocabulary quiz on Monday. Make sure that you study those words. And if you guys have questions at any point during the rest of the week, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me.